All right, guys. Good to be back with you all. We are in the Preaching Collective, and we are looking at the Negro spirituals for our upcoming sermon series.
I like what you did right there, the Preaching.
Yeah,
that's
that's
a new thing.
the Preaching. This is kind of the crew now, so you know.
Yeah.
We're gonna need T-shirts or something. All right. This is the Preaching Collective. Rhythm of Faith, and the spiritual that we'll be looking at this time is Swing Low, Sweet Chariot.
Swing low.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, see, he stopped there because he knew.
I wasn't in the shower.
The note was leaving him.
It's because I'm not in the shower. I need the acoustics and everything.
The note came and then it left. You see it walk right out that door.
Right.
Hey, that's on record.
Oh, God.
So yeah, that's on wax. That's coming.
This is, I mean, one of the more well-known ones, and when I'm interested in thinking about it, this is one of those songs that invites us to think about something that has been very much part of the church, part of the historic Black church, is sort of yearning for heaven, right? Like we're here, but I'm just a passing through, right? That kind of desire for God to come back and to be with God and with Jesus in heaven. So swing, O sweet chariot, carry forth to carry me home. I do think we were talking before what Bible passages fit with this. I think quite literally this has the idea of, I want to say like Elijah, right? So Elijah, when he goes up to heaven in the chariot, so it's that same type of imagery, right? And so, a band of angels coming for me. So you imagine this being sung in so many different spaces during, by slaves. This was sung a lot during the civil rights era as well. So there's a lot here to think about, but sometimes up and sometimes down. Here's what I'm feeling. Coming forward to carry me home, but still my soul feels heavenly bound, coming forward to carry me home. Another passage that comes to mind here for me is Colossians 3, when Paul talks about setting your mind on things above, not on earthly things. And he says in verse 4, when Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. I think that same sort of sentiment is in there.
I almost went into one of those, those seminary arguments. I'm not going to do it, but that we will appear with him thing. I was like, ooh, let me not. But, it's so like knee jerk because there's so many like debates around, anyways.
So there's good stuff here. But one of the things I have in my mind, and always for those of you who know me, am I preaching in this current day and age? I'm constantly thinking, what are the objections? What are the issues? What are people thinking about in relation to this? Just people in general, but particularly sort of the next generation, right? Because I'm always concerned, how do we sort of pass on what we have to that next generation? And so something that is said from people who are kind of, let's say, de-churched or sort of not sure how they feel about the church is
Black millennials.
Black millennials, yeah. Songs like this seem to sort of have this mentality of, as sometimes been said, you're so heavenly minded, you have no earthly good. Yeah. And so they want to say, like, this is part of the problem of why there continues to be injustice or like racism or other types of injustice as well, is that the church is too passive, too permissive. They're engaged, but they're like, well, we're going to go to heaven one day, right? And that's what we're really hoping for. And so it sort of detaches them from really being like, no, like this needs to change. It needs to change now, and we need to fight for it. And the church then is sort of blamed for promoting that mentality in, let's say, in this example, the Black community. And so there's some ways in which I think people fight against what might be initially suggested by the spiritual. So this gives you a sense of, I don't think that's what the spiritual is doing. Right? It can do it, but I don't think we have to take it that way.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because with this particular spiritual though, like the idea of maybe some people looking at this as this, passive way of kind of going about it. I mean, there's a lot of encoding that's actually in the spiritual when it talks about, specifically originally for the slaves, right? Anytime you kind of heard this idea of, chariots or wheels or something like that, someone's about to start, they're going to be running. They're going to be kind of like escaping. That was kind of like this idea. So from that perspective, for those, people that think is more passive, actually, like, it's actually more active when you think about it, in terms of actually engaging what's going on to fight against the oppression, fight against.
Some people say this
You know
might have
what I mean?
referred to the Underground Railroad. There might have
Yeah.
been some of that sort of language in here, sort of
Yeah.
hinting like, as you know, like some of the songs were also had things being said in there to help people know here's what you need to do, here's what you need to look for.
So in the same sense, it's actually the opposite of what people might be accusing it of. So if it's
That's what I'm
it's actually a
suggesting.
very like you're saying, it's the exact opposite. Like we know what's going on. We feel like things need to change right now, and this song is actually trying to give you direction as to what you should do. Is that, I wonder, even instructive in some ways of how to approach some of the movements and some of the change we want to see today, where some people are like, well, we need to fight fire with fire. And then when you look at songs like this, they're saying no, change needs to happen right now.
With
But
an
the-
internal perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you still have the mind of, I'm still going to set my mind on things above without ignoring change that needs to happen right now. But the sophisticated nature with which they would write a song like this and sing it in such a way to communicate on a very broad level, hey, here's how change can happen right now, literally. Here's how you can get free. I wonder if there's any level of instruction to that when you think through just the life and the history of that.
I think I'll have to push back just a little bit, because when I look at the lyrics, it sounds like
It does sound.
rescue me.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't give off that message of like we're gonna fight. And I think that is like what Ramon was saying before. I think with these new African American millennials, we've seen that over and over. You know, not that of course you have those who fought for our freedom, you know, the Civil War and things like that. But it's almost like this MLK. I don't know if you guys heard this before. The MLK and Malcolm.
Malcolm
Yeah,
X.
right.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
it's like, oh, peace. Like, but then they're like,
Malcolm was like, by any means.
right, by any means necessary.
means
Right. So that's
necessary.
that. Like, I'm gonna do it, and that's kind of where I believe these millennials are now.
Yeah.
Like they're like, we're not gonna do it. So it's almost like even with this, when we're talking about the whole message, like we're looking for a home, it's almost like we're complacent because now we don't need to look for Jesus to come, because we're actually gonna
We could do it ourselves.
do it ourselves.
Well, I'm just.
So how do you preach to that, to those people who like, nah, we don't, like, we gonna actually get freedom right now?
That's true. But I wonder if, so I'm not suggesting fighting per se.
Okay.
Some would say fight fire with fire,
Yes.
right? Nat Turner,
Right.
go,
Yeah.
they kill us, go kill them.
Right.
Eye for an eye.
Nat Turner said that God told him.
He did say that.
That's interesting.
You see what I'm saying?
Conversation,
So, but
I mean-
but in a song like this, that's not saying fight. So I agree with you in the sense that it's like, hey, come rescue me. But if in some of these like this had a level of encoding, like encryption, like there's the song with an eternal perspective. I was only asking the question, if it is the case that some of these lyrics are sort of intended to have a double meaning,
Yeah.
both we're waiting for Jesus to come and save us. Like we're waiting for that rapture. We're waiting for that time where we won't be here anymore and we'll be with Jesus in heaven. But in the same light, we do know what's going on right now. And if there's a degree where we can say something in a way that's more sophisticated and communicate to people that, hey, you can get away,
Yeah.
right? Here's a path you can take to freedom, to where it's like, hey, we're not ignoring what you're
Yeah.
going through
Yeah.
right now. We're just not taking the fighting route.
Yeah.
We're going to sing.
Yeah.
And we believe Jesus has something different for us. And in the way that we sing this song, we can deliver the message that, hey, you can be free now
Yeah.
and you'll be ultimately free in the future. I was asking, in that kind of sophisticated nature of communication, it has a very MLK kind of vibe to it, which would more likely to say MLK had more of a, sort of like Negro spiritual vibe to it, in the
Yeah.
way that he would kind of rally these sort of sophisticated ways
So-
of protest.
Yeah. It's so
Can we learn
interesting.
from that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. I just found something just now. So there's one argument that, it was very much encoded, right? So I look over to Jordan. What did I see? That was code for the Mississippi River,
Yeah.
right?
Ohio River, actually.
Or Ohio River. It says either one.
Or okay, yeah. I did my research.
Oh, check you out. you want to preach this? So do you want to? What's the next thing I'm going to say? No. Band of Angels being workers on the Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
Coming to take me coming to take me to heaven, to home, to reach the north. So I think there's definitely more of an active presence in that. Right?
Absolutely.
So given that, I think there's two things. One, it's about a real reality, right? So I think one of the that's a real reality. We're going to leave slavery and go into freedom, right, in the north. So when we sing this in a spiritual sense, we're not talking about like, oh, just a floating. No, there's like a real freedom that we yearn for, that matters, that's worth fighting for and looking for. One, but then two, you're singing this to give you hope for right now, right, and stability for right now, and stability for now that allows you to not sort of be crushed, right?
Yeah.
And so I think this should speak to us today, because while we are in the right now, things sometimes don't immediately change, right? How do you not be crushed by that? How do you not be destroyed by that? How do you get up each day and not be sort of ruined by anxiety and by stress and by this allows you to sort of be present in the moment, but be present in a moment that allows you to live a legit life, right?
Yeah.
Legit life, looking for freedom to come. But then I would argue, but looking for freedom to come that's not sort of detached from your current reality. Yeah. And a freedom that's meant to be eventually seen everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a broader sense of like the slaves are looking for freedom in the North, but with the expectation that like they join the North to then become part of the movement to continue to bring slaves to freedom. Right. So that eventually the whole reality does change. Yeah. Right. And so yearning for heaven is not just I'm going to leave everything behind, but yearning for reality to come right now and to be part of that process. Is that?
It sounds like it's probably it's my favorite. I mean, obviously everyone knows the Lord's Prayer, but I think we sometimes overlook the nature of it, because if they're looking to heaven and then going to the north to make that reality here, that's very much on earth as it is in heaven, right? Thy will be done, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so then when you're thinking with an eternal perspective, like, man, one day things on earth will be like they are in heaven, it does have that double meaning that, hey, we can play a part in that. Yeah. We have a privilege. God's given us opportunity. He's given us, maybe even responsibility to be involved in enacting some of those things because of his spirit that's at work in us. Yeah. So that we live here on earth as we will one day in heaven.
And I think even preaching these more messages about our eternal hope, like, because it kind of gets us out of that mindset of like just the struggle, because I think that's because it's so real. Like we've talked about, it's something that we're constantly faced with every day, especially if people of color, of all of the disparities that we experience. But then even beyond that, like, what if we were free? What if the systems were level? Like even then, right. Like our heart should still long for something more, because we still experience death. Yeah. Yep. We still experience sickness. Yeah. Like
that's good.
And these are like, okay, even
if 2020 ain't taught us anything.
Right.
So so there is a healthy matter. So there is there's a present reality that we're in and that we're not ignoring.
Right.
And so it's a prayer for that to change. But what I like about you is maybe there's a bit of a pushback we should give towards the people around us. Like, this isn't our home.
Yeah, right.
And that maybe sometimes our expectations are too strong, that there always going to be some level of brokenness.
Yes.
We want to make it better the time that we have here. But like there's, at a very fundamental level, like humanity is not getting rid of death as much as we can. You said something else there too. That was good.
Sickness, all of that, yeah.
And so I wonder if we should reclaim a sense of like, ultimately I'm here, but I am a passing through, right?
Yeah.
And that's good.
So excellent. Love it. Lyrics say, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for you to carry me home. There's been a lot of talk about home, and whatnot, even so far. I was talking to a therapist the other day, and it was interesting because this idea of home came up, and he sat back in the chair, and what is home for you? Kind of like the little pause too.
That's a therapist question.
It's like super
it sounded like a trap. It's like, he trying to trap you.
Yeah.
Like, don't walk into the trap.
What is home for you? And I was taken back a little bit because it was interesting, because I was like what is home? So it'd be interesting for you to kind of tease out, like,
that's good.
What is home for, like, it says carry me home. What is home? It seems like we're talking about heaven, right? Yeah. But what, describe that? Like, what is that actually going to be like? What is the glory of heaven? What is, like, what is home, right? Because if we're just passing through, as you guys are saying, which I agree with, where are we going? And what is, if it's home, if it's heaven, anyways, it'd be interesting just to see what that is. I know N.T. Wright has that book, Surprised by Hope, and he talks a little bit about rethinking heaven. I think that's one of the things that he talks about.
That's true.
So I don't know. I just want to, like, you should tease that out. Like, what is home?
I thought you was going to tell us what you told the therapist. I thought that's what was coming. I was like, go on, share it, John. Go on, hit us with it.
That's going to cost you.
But you like, no, that's like, we going to stop that right there.
Yeah. And I'm looking for that passage.
I was like, did you fall into the trap? Did you get?
Nah, I swindled my way out.
Did you get in the quicksand?
Home is where the house. What is it? Home is where the heart is. Is that the saying?
That's a Bible answer.
Oh,
it's like a little.
Is it?
No, that's just a saying.
What Bible are you reading?
I was like, wait.
It sound like it'll be in the Bible.
I don't think that.
Yes,
I love it.
Yes. I was like, no, that's actually not.
It's not. It sounded like it.
Yes.
It does sound like it.
What seminary are you at again?
What's the
you're not making them look.
It's not in the ESV Bible,
bro. You tripping?
Almost where the heart is. That's like a commercial.
That's that message version.
Man.
God helps those who help themselves.
That's right.
It's in the same Bible that one's in.
I guess maybe it's in second hesitation. My bad.
Second hesitation.
My bad, Doc.
I love it.
John, that was great.
Man.
That was great.
Yeah, I was trying to look for that scripture. I wasn't able to find it, but in Revelation where it talks about like where there won't even be a need for the Son because Jesus will,
Oh, it's in Revelation 22. I know.
22. Come
That's
on,
in the
brother.
Bible.
Probably 22:5, somewhere 1 through 5. It's in there. I've got it on my arm. That's why. So
You gotta know it.
22. Yeah, you're right. They will need no light of lamp or sun.
Yes.
The Lord God will be their light, and they will reign forever.
I
and
can't
ever.
tell you how we waiting on that.
I love it. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's this is helpful, guys. I mean, I think I want to. Well, I mean, there's a lot here. I'm going to rewatch this as I've been doing for all of them. I like the idea of home. How do we help people have that sense of home to come and yearning for that, but then being present in the now, right?
Oh yeah,
how we're active. How now God gives us a home now, even as we yearn for home. Again, I sort of feeling this push and pull of I want people to realize it's just not like a be heavily minded and no earthly good type of. I don't think we should treat it that way. But that my instinct right now is to like say, I wonder if we need to not be afraid of that language more, right? Of like, again, I think I wonder if it's more freeing than we realize. That like it's almost like it's like the person who's like interested in guy's interested in a girl, right? And he's like he like chokes it to death almost like in terms of like how he pursues a relationship, right? He's like texting every minute. He's like he's like rather than like.
Thirsty.
Yeah.
Thirsty, bro.
Like, yeah, exactly. You want to tell people like, hey, just chill. Like, don't,
chill.
This is just like, so like trying to force the relationship, try to force something into something that's going to take time and energy, right?
Patience.
Yeah, exactly. In some way, like with this life that we sort of do the same thing. Like we're trying to like grab it and what we're grabbing, we're actually choking the life out of us. Like we're trying to make life into something that like life is chaos. Yeah. It's uncertain. God gives us great promises and ability at different points. There's different points that there's an infusion of heaven on earth, I would say. Yeah. So like the ending of segregation, right, is one of them. Reforming of child labor laws. I mean, there's different points where heaven does come down, but heaven won't fully come down until the Lord comes back, and we should be aware of that. And that's actually encouraging and motivating for us.
Yeah, that's good.
Man.
There's a verse in John, because when you talk about where home is, and I'll just read it. It says, "Beloved, we are God's children now, and what we will be has not yet appeared. But we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, because we shall see him as he is."
As he is, yeah.
And I remember the verse, but I thought it was like where he is. But when you think about home, and sometimes there's often this idea that we're going to be, obviously where we're going to go is a matter of discussion. Like, is it another dimension? Is it another place? Is it like, how do you think about what that is? Yeah. The idea is that we will be with Jesus, and Jesus and the Father will be with us in a place, again, on earth as it is in heaven. You know, and I think the expectation of that, to think through this and go like that kind of expectation to sort of get us through, to even think about how we think of ourselves in this moment. Vermon, you were talking about the way we sing to kind of get us through, so it's not always just the struggle. That verse helps do that.
Can I?
1 John 3:2.
And can I add too? Because as you guys were talking, Revelations 22, when we're talking about the Jordan River and all of this other stuff, just the first 3 verses, I think is just amazing.
Oh yeah, it's litty for nitty.
Man, yes. Then the angel showed me a river with the water of life, clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. It flowed down the center of the main street. On each side of the river grew a tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, with a fresh crop each month. The leaves were used to as medicine to heal the nations. No longer will there be a curse upon anything. Like, I'm like, man.
That's good verse.
And I know it's just the imagery of that, like the leaves were as medicine to heal the nations. What we're talking about.
Magic tree.
Come on, right. But I mean,
that's good.
It is real good, right? And then there'll no longer be a curse upon anything. Like, man. So
yeah, that's good. Good stuff. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you got enough to be able to help you with this. I mean, I
got a new Bible verse to use. That's for sure.
But good. Well, as we always say, this was good, helpful. Love God, love people. We are out. Peace.